morning. Phillip Davis, Ancestry Lands, AncestryLands.com. Let's get into it. So today, folks, driving into the city now. A little different from our previous videos. Make sure you like and share this anywhere. You could be anywhere, but you're here with me. So let's begin. I'm going to talk a little bit about the beginning stages of forming an LLC, or at least how I've done it. Many of these videos, like I said, you can listen to these videos. You don't always have to watch. This is meant to be informative, introspective, and also educational. And I hope to add a little bit of humor along the way to help, entertain those who need entertaining and tend to get bored over information. So when you're forming an LLC, you can do an LLC many different ways. You can, of course, use Zoom. You can, or LegalZoomcom. You can use actual lawyer. I've done both. I've actually used a website called Northwest Registered Agent. That's northwestregisteredagent.com, and they do what's called a I forget what the actual name of it is, but pretty much they do a representation for you in case anything happens. They do all your legal stuff, respond to any legal things that are done. And forgive me, I forget the name of what it's called. A registered agent, that's what you call it, the Northwest Registered Agent. And you don't have to do all the filing and paperwork on your own. I think it was about $250 to do it. And it just filled out simple information about what my business was, what type of business I had, what the articles of organization are, and then also I would also include that even on your own time, you probably need to do a mission statement. The reason why I say do a mission statement is because you want to have core values that your company operates from. Every business that I've ever seen, including companies like hospitals that I work for, they all have mission statements. But your articles of organization are a really big, important, how your business is structured is going to be super important to you and your business formulation. A lot of people think that it's just going online and getting the LLC started, but the reason why it's very important to, at least in my opinion, go through a site like northwestregisteredagent.com or even like LegalZoom, where you actually want to kind of get a little bit of legal advice, actual lawyer or corporate legal advice, to make sure that if your business is going to be successful as you hope and dream and wish it to be, you're definitely going to need things like a good articles of organization, a good mission statement. Those things are going to come into play when you start to do business, real world business and real life business, and you start to take your business from a digital setting to a physical realm. And that is where you would interact with banks, you would deal with other business, you would get into loans. When you start getting into the real world, that to me is where this stuff will come back to haunt you. And it's very hard to backtrack on a business there, which is why typically at that point you're going to have to create another business or create another LLC doing business as, which are also called DBAs. So it's very important to really do your homework and due diligence up front when you're starting an LLC, and that paperwork needs to be solid. The other thing is that people think about you doing in a tax-free state that doesn't have tax, that doesn't have any state taxes like Delaware, Wyoming, even Florida. Texas is another popular one. There is some merit to that, but at the same time, when you live in a state and you're operating in that state, sometimes depending on the level of your level of business, you may need to represent yourself as a foreign agent, meaning that you're not native or doing business in the state in which your LLC is registered in. So this means that a lot of times you have an additional, if you're doing business in other states, you have to pay those state taxes when you are selling your product, or you're even filing taxes on profits made in that state. So this creates a quandary, because now you have to pay an additional state tax to the state that you're doing business in, as well as your home state as far as your income. Rather, like my business is registered, Ancestry Lands is registered in Pennsylvania, and we're doing business when my in real world life business is being done in Pennsylvania. So it actually helps that I'm not getting taxed in two different places when I'm doing business organizational work in my actual business in the state that I conduct business in. Now, selling land presents itself as a problem because I own real estate in multiple states, which means that a lot of times I'm acting as a foreign agent. And you have to be registered when you're doing a certain amount of business, which means that you could incur additional costs and fees and have to register that business in that state. Now, again, this is not legal advice. This is just experience that I have learned doing business, as a person who did it from the ground up. And that's one of the bigger issues. The other one is that you really need to make sure that you have a good accountant. I tell you, in accounting, my wife tends to buck at our accountant because it'll cost us $2,000 to do our taxes. Now, keep in mind, we're doing our W-4s, which I have a W-4, and then you're doing your Schedule Cs for both my wife and I's business, and that's a lot of taxes to do. And also, we're doing our taxes in multiple states, including our home state. So that's a lot of taxes to do, and it really helps when you have a good accountant that you can communicate with, one. And the second part is that they understand your business. My accountant actually is a land investor, and they sell land as well. So they understand the nature of things like unrealized income that I deal with in land, because again, I sell land, but I don't always generally make my profit sometimes until years into the land selling process. So when you think about it, you really start to understand that you need an accountant, not just any accountant. Like, I can't go to H&R Block. H&R Block is good for someone who is working at a W-4 job or W-2 job, whatever they call them now, and they're just getting straight, I go to work 9 to 5, clock in and out. I may have a house or some form of real estate that I own, and it's not overly complex taxes that I have to do. So in that aspect, yeah, something like a H&R Block works just fine for people like that. For me, with the level of complexity, because I have business write-off, business expenses, that's going to require you to step your game up to go to a higher level accountant in that aspect. So it's something you really need to think about where you spend your money at. Now, again, this is all going to be laid into your level of business and profit that you're making. If you're making a substantial amount of profit, you really want to have an accountant that's not going to get you in trouble with the IRS. You want to have an accountant that really understands what you can write off, what you're limited in writing off, because despite what people think, when you have business expenses, there's only a certain amount of business expenses you can write off. And I like that my accountant has recommended that when they're looking at my taxes, what we do, he also gives me a certain level of education on how to better qualify myself for business write-offs, business expenses, to give myself a lower taxable overhead, like my taxable income, to lower my taxable income. And I like that because he's telling me things that are within the tax law, that are legal ways to lower your taxable income without drawing the ire of the IRS. So an audit does not look like I'm being investigated for Watergate charges. An audit, it looks like, I just came up statistically on a number poll for the IRS to investigate or do a search on my taxes. But when you have good paperwork and you are writing off things that you're allowed to write off, and you have an accountant that you can trust in that, it's definitely going to make the process go a lot smoother and more helpful. And the last part I'll tell you about is proper filing of your receipts and documentation. If you're a person that when I go and ask you for a piece of paper, you got to fumble through 40 different piles of junk and mess, I'm not really sure LLC formation is going to be really for you, because you have to keep paperwork on your business documents, which I would suggest you do in the physical and digital form, and then have some backups. You want to be able to, scan your documents and put them in the proper files, because you need to access them at all times, especially when you get an EIN number, which is basically like a social security number for your business. This allows you to engage banks to have business and checking accounts, business checking and business savings account. So, these things are very important to have, but you need to be organized above all things when you're dealing with the paperwork. A lot of people say, oh man, I got an LLC, and they got an LLC form. You ask about the articles of organization, do they have an EIN number, and things kind of start falling to the wayside, and you start getting more explanations than actual evidence being shown. More you don't get any documentation, you get explanation. We'll go and say it that way. And that's one of the things that the government's not looking for your explanations when they do an audit. They're looking for documentation. And then also the last part is being able to file your receipts appropriately. You need to make sure that your accounting of your expenditures is really tight, because again, you want to be able to write off the proper deductions that you can for your business. So when you're forming an LLC, it's very important to understand what you can and can't write off for your business. Do a little education on your industry, your area of expertise or area of practice, so you can understand how to better operate your business and what you can and can't write off. And also spend some time with your accountant, asking them about things that you can and can't do as far as your business is concerned in relation to tax law. That will give you a big leg up into understanding where you spend your money at and where you save your money for things that you do you can't get a write-off for. So I'm going to keep it brief on that, folks. Thank you for listening. Thank you for watching. I hope you got some value out of this. Just a quick how-to video or things you should know about forming an LLC. Why I'll get into another video on why you should form an LLC and what the benefits are. But if you did like or got something or any information out of the video, please give it a like and share. And also, you can learn a little bit about land investing and why you should own land, the benefits of land ownership by getting my book, Getting Dollars from Dirty, Beginner's Guide to Vacant Land Investing on Amazon. The description, there's a link to the description section below. Thanks, folks. Have a great day. Remember, like and share. And lastly, if you don't own property, folks, you will be owned as property. Phillip Davis, Ancestry Lands, and I'm out. Peace.